Hello and welcome to the IBF Education Podcast, where I'll be talking to non-native English language learners about their experiences learning English and about why they chose to learn the English language in the first place. Today we'll be speaking with Cande. Cande, how are you doing today? Are you okay?
Hi, Jacob. I'm okay, thank you.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. So, to start, where are you from, Cande? Which country do
Well,
you live in?
I'm from Argentina. I always live here, and I'm living here.
Perfect. And whereabouts in Argentina are you living?
Excuse me, can you repeat?
Of course. Where in Argentina are you
Ah,
living?
in Buenos Aires, sorry.
Perfect. That's great. Do you
Yeah.
like Buenos Aires?
Yes, I like. It's a beautiful city.
For people who don't know anything about Buenos Aires, what's your favorite thing that you like to do in Buenos Aires?
I like, for example, I like going to restaurants and eat things.
For sure, the the food in this country is pretty incredible.
Yes. I love Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas is a nice restaurant in the district of Palermo. Really, really nice restaurant.
Yes.
That's great. And what would you say is your favorite traditional food from Argentina?
Wow, it's difficult. I think that maybe meat
Any
with
particular meat?
meat in general. And for example, I don't like matter. I'm a little bit strange. And well, I like meat and pasta. It's not so traditional from here, but it's a kind of
Traditional with the Italian immigrants.
yes.
That's
I mix.
interesting though, that you don't like mate.
No,
That's really interesting. So for anybody who doesn't know, mate is kind of a traditional drink in Argentina. Involves what's called yerba. It's kind of this green leafy um, tea-like substance that you put into a small pot and you drink it through a straw. And it's normally shared with
with
friends or
friends and
family.
family. Yes. Have you tasted?
Yes, I like mate. Mate is nice, but I prefer to drink it alone because generally the people that I have around me who want to drink it put lots of sugar in it. I can't stand sugar, so I try to drink it alone. That's the best way for me, especially since the pandemic.
For example, I like seeing tango, and so because I think it's beautiful to see another ones dancing tango.
You know what? I've lived in Argentina for 4.5 years now, and I've not seen any tango here.
No, why?
I don't know. I just haven't come across it. That's the only thing I can think of. But I will see some. I will purposely go out and see some soon. 'Cause it's
I
something
can
that I want to
suggest
do.
you some places to go to see if you want.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So, Cande, what do you do for a living? What is your job?
Well, I'm a psychologist, so I have patients. I work as a teacher in a private university, and I work with people with disabilities.
That's awesome. So you do many things then.
A lot of things.
And what made you choose that line of work?
I think because I like helping people, and and I enjoy helping them.
Perfect reason to become a psychologist.
Yes, it's a beautiful career.
It's a very interesting career.
Yes, we talk a lot in the IBF community about some topics of psychology.
Yes, definitely. It's something I'm quite interested in, psychology of
Yes,
things. So it's
psychology,
very,
anxiety, delirious, a lot.
oh yeah, for sure. We've talked a lot, we've had a lot of psychological topics this year. So do you get much opportunity to speak English while you're working or?
Yes, I think that for example, taking classes with you in English helped me to have international patients or to this possibility. No, I had an Italian patient, and we had the session in Spanish, but I think that now I can have a session in English with her or with everyone.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yes, that's why I'm learning English too.
That's amazing. So would you say that English has been quite useful for you to learn?
Yes, I think that a part of that knowing English is so important because I don't know, maybe you can travel to to another part of the world, and I don't know. I think that it's important to know English, like open knowing English, open opportunities or about job, for example.
Definitely, definitely. Knowing English definitely opens up more doors in terms of work possibilities. That's for
Yeah,
sure. Is that something you would like to pursue in the future? Would you like to go and work in another country, or are you quite fixed on staying in Argentina?
I don't know. I don't know.
The door is open, though.
Yes,
English does
sure.
give you that ability.
Yes, yes, sure.
And how many years have you been studying English for, Cande?
Oh, I went to school that it was like bilingual,
Yeah,
and
a
then I
bilingual
lost
school.
bilingual school. Yes, and then I lost my English when I studied at university because I didn't have I didn't have English, and so I think that more or less 12 years.
Fair play. A good amount of time then.
Yes, it's a lot.
And it's surprising that you didn't get to speak much. Well, speaking maybe not so much at university, but I imagine you read a lot in English, surely, for
No,
psychology. No, really, that
only
surprises me.
Spanish.
So,
I
is there a lot of things in psychology translated to English?
yes, I
Right.
had, for example, two levels of English that I had to take an exam in university, but it were so basic.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm,
I don't know, comparative, superlatives. That was in first grade in my case.
I've seen it. It's a very easy exam. Very easy exam.
So, but now I did a post degree in Rorschach test, and now I'm reading a book in English. I understand a lot, so that is I would notice for me.
That's awesome. And do you think that is a lot of the psychological vocabulary in Spanish quite similar to English?
Yes, it's similar, not the same, but are similar because I studied a vocabulary of psychology English with another teacher. So they are similar. Not the same, but
Yeah, within the same ballpark to get the idea though.
yes, that's the important thing.
Yeah, that's really important. It does help having some close similarities between
Yes.
languages.
For example, anxiety, autism, psychosis, and I think that we we saw in IBF community.
Yeah, of course, of course. And really, knowing Spanish is just a slight difference in pronunciation or
Hmm.
slightly different
Yes,
suffix on the end of the Spanish word. So that's good. That's good to know.
thank you. Yes.
So, do you have any goals with learning English, Cande? What is your ultimate goal with English?
Wow, difficult question. I think maybe the level. I think that I'm B1 and I would like to be C1.
Okay, so you want to get to an advanced level of English.
Yes, I don't know how, you know, but I think that's an important goal for me.
Yeah, so that's a really good goal to have, and I think it's very achievable as well. I don't think it's that hard to achieve advanced levels of English, especially for adults, actually.
Mm.
One of the key differences between children learning a language and adults learning a language is that adults can learn a language faster, actually, than children because they
Yeah,
have life experience in their first language and they can take that life experience straight into association with the second language. I would say that the difficulty for adults learning a second language is that there is a limit on the amount of vocabulary that you can
Mm,
learn.
maybe, yes.
For sure. I mean, there's been a lot of scientific studies done on this, and it does seem there is kind of a plateau, a peak, and then the only thing that allows you to overcome that peak is time.
Ah, yes.
So, which is the key indicator of learning any language, right? I mean, nobody learns a language 100%. That's just impossible. It's an impossible task.
The
So,
problem is that I don't know, for example, if the difference is, I don't know, maybe grammar, vocabulary, or which is the difference between each level. But you are you are my teacher, so you know.
yeah, well, it depends on what metrics you use to measure it. There's a lot of traditional systems like Cambridge English or IELTS or those things who take kind of a mixed assessment of reading, writing, speaking, listening. And I mean, they're all important for language, but I feel that a lot of the kind of more mainstream programs are too grammar dominant, and grammar does not translate into speaking whatsoever,
Oh,
not at all. It can help with comprehension, to read things and to write. It's really writing is fantastic for really exploring your ideas, which can strengthen your connection to the idea in a language. Um, but in terms of speaking and fluency, that is just a matter of putting yourself into conversations and allowing it to come out. It's really as simple as that. What you'll find is that the first time you talk about something in a language, or let's say a particular area, say psychology or sports, whatever it might be, the first time you do it, it's going to be quite difficult because your brain hasn't configured the best way to say what you want to say yet because you haven't got any experience to go on, right?
yes,
It's kind of similar. I mean, this is a psychological concept in a lot of ways, right? So you have to um, have a base for something, and then from that base, you can always improve it and refine it and make it better and better and better. And I say for conversation, say if you'd had the same conversation, I always use the same analogy because it's the easiest to explain. Um, you were telling me before the podcast you just went on a holiday, so this is the perfect time to try this experiment, right? Um, speak to 7 different friends over the next 7 days in English and tell them about your holiday. Okay. And you'll find that on the first day, you're going to have no order to what you say on a critical level. You're going to say, on the Sunday I did this, and on the Friday I did this, and on the Monday I did this. There's not going to be a chronological order. And because of that, people are going to get a little bit confused because they're not going to understand order events, which is quite important for most people. Um, and you'll go away a little bit dissatisfied. And this is part of the storytelling angle of communication, right? So the next time you have the same conversation on day two with another friend, you would have thought about what you said yesterday, thought, oh, well, that person didn't enjoy the conversation yesterday. So today I'm going to say it like this. And you'll probably figure out the order. The vocabulary and the way that you're expressing it, not going to be refined yet, but the order's there. On the third day, you're going to add something else. On the fourth day, something else. And you increase in that way. And then you build a really, really strong base of an idea, which then transfers into multiple conversations over time. So if you set a strong foundation with particular topics that are important in your life to talk about with your friends and family, then that is the quickest way to get to an advanced level. Because
well,
I think the exams focus on too many subject areas, and a lot of them are not important for people. And I don't think it's important to have the widest range of vocabulary possible across every topic because that's a time thing. You spent your whole life doing that in your first language. You're going to need your whole life to do that in your second language from the moment you start, right? So what's better is to focus your vocabulary and your ideas around topics that you like to speak about. Because one, you enjoy speaking about it, so that's motivation to do something for one, which is always a strong indicator. Um, Secondly, you'll pick up and develop these very refined ways of explaining things through repetition very, very quickly. And thirdly, there's only so many topics that you're going to speak about in your life. So actually, you can be really specific because you know who you are, you know what you'd like to talk about. So you can focus on those 5 or 6 topics that come up generally through your life and become very advanced at speaking about those things very, very quickly. When people say, I want to be advanced level in English, well, there's two things. You can be advanced probably within inside a year. Yeah, probably a year, maybe even sometimes less, maybe even 6 months if you do something quite intensive in the things that you like to talk about and feel very comfortable doing that. If you want to be able to speak about everything you've possibly talked about in your life, though, in Spanish, that's a lifelong goal. That's going to take you a long, long, long time. So I think it has to be achievable what you've got to set your mind for. If you want to just focus on singular topics to start. And then as you spend more time in the language anyway, you're going to realize as you get older and your hobbies and interests change, you're going to add new sections and it will build from there. So
But I will try it to practice this with my friends on my holidays.
yeah, it's a good experiment to do. Trust me, even me as a native English speaker, I do exactly the same thing still. If you probably do it in Spanish as well, because you'll realize you want to get some kind of acknowledgement about your great experiences, right? Because that's why we have conversations on a psychological note. So you want to make sure that after these kind of 7 times or more times, everything's just going to refine even more. The vocabulary you're going to use is going to be a lot more exciting, entice more of a response. And you're going to find a way, maybe even a technique that you pick up from listening. Like in our classes, we talked a lot about superlative adjectives, for example, right? And the power of those. And this is a good example of this. You probably won't do that on the first day, but maybe on the 7th or the 8th person you speak to, you're probably going to throw one in there because you know it's going to get someone's attention. Like you'll start like, oh, I had the best holiday ever. And everyone's going, oh, really? And that's how you start your conversation.
It was impossible for me, for example, what I did last class about talking about my hobby, about 5 minutes. It was a lot for me, but I'm proud of me because I could do it last class.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the other avenue you've got to think about. And as a psychologist, you'll know this as well, but the anxiety element is really, really important to overcome. So,
Yes, and confidence, because that is like maybe, for example, I don't know, maybe after your classes, I thought that maybe I couldn't do that, but little by little, I did it.
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of in the way that I teach anyway. My job always, first of all, I see it is to reduce the anxiety of students as low as I can get it with my help. Because you can't learn anything if your anxiety is really high, especially a language which is something very social and everything we said is judged subconsciously. So that's a lot of pressure for people, especially if they need it. I work predominantly only with working professionals, right? So working professionals need English now. They need to be able to speak about all of these different things, but they've got this in their head that they need to learn it now, and that's so anxiety inducing. It's like, calm, take a
Yes.
breath first. We can build from there.
And another thing is that you're a native. So it's like, how can a native can understand me? And that is another thing that, for example, I was nervous when I started classes.
Of course, definitely. It's a really common thing that I hear. It's a really, really common thing I hear. And I think it's a really interesting one as well, because I would actually say that you shouldn't understand everything that I say. You should understand maybe 80 to 85% of what I say. That's probably a good bearing to know that you've got a good grip of the language. It's the same in when you learn any second language, right? Like when I think about when I'm speaking Spanish with people, I don't understand every single word, but I get the idea.
That's important
And
thing.
yeah, that is the most important thing. And you will understand concepts more and more with more exposure to things. You've also got things like accents you've got to consider. Accents are so diverse in English. I think more diverse than the Spanish language, especially. So that's something to really be aware of in the future. But accents are not an issue because you adapt to them the more time you speak to people. if you meet somebody, say with a really hard accent, like an Indian accent, for example, if you speak to an Indian most days for a month, you'll start to understand their accent just naturally. Of course, there'll be the
Yes.
odd word you won't get, but you will naturally just progress and understand it just for the exposure, just letting your ears tune to those new sounds.
The same with your accent.
Definitely. I mean, I've got a very southern British accent, so it's a little hard to get for some people. But I normally find, depending on the students and their level of experience, anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks. It's about the acclimatization time, I think.
I'm taking classes with you, I think, since February, March,
February. Yeah, February, I think it was that we
8 months.
started.
Wow, it's a lot.
Yeah, this year's definitely flown by.
Yes, we are. I don't know. Maybe in the end of the year.
Oh, too quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, literally October, November, December. Scary how quickly this year has flown.
They're in Christmas.
Yeah, literally. But no, this those are some. It's a very good goal to have. I would say what's really important for you at this stage now is refine that goal even more. Yes, you want to be an advanced speaker. Okay, think about on a psychological level. Okay, what do I normally speak about? Okay, what can I currently speak about in those individual topics and what can't I speak about? And then it's a matter of comprehensible input. So reading some books that are at a level that you can understand the majority of it with some words and phrases that you just have no idea what it means. You need to have that balance. You don't want something really easy. You don't want something too hard. You want I think the statistics I was reading, I was reading an article about the optimization of learning. This applied under literally everything in a laboratory setting. And what it said is that it doesn't matter if it was creative or intellectual in any way. 85% of the information you need to be able to understand. The other 15 you shouldn't understand at all. And that's optimal conditions. If it's 1% more, negative results. 1% less, negative results. It has to be 85 and 15.
Okay. Wow,
That's-
it's a good
Yeah, that's really
idea.
interesting. Yeah, well, that's how you get new vocabulary, right? So, like, as you're reading or you're having a conversation or you're listening to something, you'll probably get the idea of everything that's been said, but you may not know one word. But the one word isn't important because it just feeds into the context of the whole sentence.
Yes.
So, through the wider context of a paragraph as opposed to one sentence, you should theoretically get the idea. And if not, maybe it's elaborating over a page or 10 pages, right? And it's just a matter of getting through the information. But I challenge anybody, if there's a particular genre of reading that you like, if there's a particular type of video on YouTube that you like, find 10 books or 10 YouTubers or 10 musical artists, whatever it might be, and watch or read or listen to 10 things that they have done that are very similar in content wise. So, you know, 10 sci-fi fantasy books or I don't know, 10 YouTube videos about holidays. Who knows what it is? You will find that similar vocabulary will always come up. And just through the exposure, you will start to associate the word with the meaning. Same like basic English, right? You associate yes. I mean, even in Spanish, right? Bring it back to basics. You learn mama, dada. Yes, no. Okay. And it's interesting on context, especially like yes or no, because you associate one with good, one with bad. And that's a natural association that you get based on feedback from your environment. That's the exact same thing when you learn any piece of vocabulary in a language.
Yes.
So that
And
should be your goal, Gandhi.
and reading the other, for example, I don't know, body expressions and all that.
Definitely. That's an interesting one as well. That would depend in what part of the world you are. In Argentina, everybody's always moving their hands like this, rainbows, the whole
Like
lot.
clowns.
Yeah, it is. It literally emotionally exhausted me when I moved to Argentina. The first month, right? I was so overwhelmed with all this stimulus response that I couldn't tell if I should look at somebody, listen to them. It was an absolute nightmare. I felt really tired, but I've accustomed to it after many years. But in England, people don't use so many movements or those things. So you have to listen to the intonations. Intonations are the most important thing.
Yes.
So even those cultural differences across the world can be quite hard to get sometimes.
Yes. We are strengths in the world, maybe.
Yeah, we've all got our individual quirks, that's for sure. Well, Cande, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast today. It's been a pleasure talking about you and talking about your English and your goals. And I'm excited for me personally to help you achieve them.
Thank you, Shaiko. Thank you for this opportunity too.
No problem at all. And thank you to anybody that is watching. And we'll be back soon with another episode in the future. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.